High Agency Podcast with your host, Noah Ravoy.
Hello, I'm here today back with Coach Bahman. This is the second time I've had you on because you're such a fascinating gentleman. And we're going to be talking about how you can get the most value out of your coaching experience. And this will apply to anyone, but Coach Bahman focuses or specializes in really high performance people. So high performance coaching for high performance people. And so we're going to have some special information there, for those who are very sensitive or have autism or other things that make their experience very different in the workplace and in life. How is it that they can capitalize on their strengths and work with what they have? Thank you very much for joining us today.
As usual, it's a pleasure, Noah. I always love to be with people who are real, authentic, honest, even though the consequences might be getting piled on social media from time to time. I appreciate that because these are the voices that we need, right? The people who are not afraid to speak out what they believe is true, whether it's actually factual or not. It is your truth, and we need to respect that. And I love that, and I'm happy to hear that. And I know a lot of people quietly, silently appreciate you and vouch for you and work with you, even though they might not, dare to speak about it because they get piled on Twitter and they don't want that. But we know a lot of people behind the scenes appreciate you and what you do, and I'm definitely not afraid to stand for that. Yeah, sometimes I wish I had some of the ginormous balls that you have on Twitter, but unfortunately, I do not. And I keep to myself, and I keep to doing safe statements, which, maybe I need to mix it up from time to time. Whenever I see your tweets, I feel like I maybe need to spice it up a little bit from time to time. Whatever topic it is, sometimes I feel like, saying something about pornography or about feminism or society. And then I just get back into my high performance hole.
Well, it's interesting. I've noticed that I will say something and there's some pushback, and 3 months later a few of the people that are also on the edge will say the same thing, but within about a year it starts entering mainstream consciousness, and I'll hear Joe Rogan mention the same key phrases I was mentioning back when I didn't know anyone else mentioning those things. And this has happened on a few things. I started talking about agency several years ago and how that was a key. Developing our own agency was a key to making ourselves more successful in life, no matter who we are. And now it's even to the point where my son's school, it has been integrated into their curriculum. He goes to an international baccalaureate school. It's an IB school. This is a global program, and there's thousands of schools in this program. And starting, I think it was last year, but all the schools this year are rolling it out. They have agency woven in through the entire teaching process, where they're encouraging the children to have agency over their behavior, over their, it's not this is good and bad behavior. It is this behavior a demonstration of agency? My son says, I can't find my book. Well, it's your book and you had it, and your responsibility to do it. So instead of complaining you don't have it, what can you do to fix the problem? And it's really shifting the mindset of these kids over from complaining about problems to actual action they can take in their own life to resolve their own issues, so that they don't have to ask for help on basic life things. And I think a lot of our coaching is designed for that. My goal when I coach someone is to not have to continually help them about the same subject. I want to teach them how to get to a certain point where they can make their own decisions and they don't need me. Much the same way that a parent should think about raising a child. We don't want our kid to forever be needed to be spoon-fed. I'm also dyslexic. Spoon-fed information. We want them to be able to, consume on their own and do things on their own with what they consume. And I think that's really one of the marks of effective coaching. What I would call high agency coaching is when our goal is to help people become more independent and self-sufficient.
Yes, absolutely. And that's even when I started in counseling in the community centers 10 years ago. That's really a concept that my mentor taught me is reverse psychology. And in Holland, it's a literal translation of omdenken. So thinking inside out, and literally translated. And what he meant by that is when I told him, I don't think I'm I'm the guy who needs to talk with his kids and help them out of poverty and drug dealing and prostitution and these low poverty, horrible environments where they grow up in. I don't think I'm the guy because I myself been through that process and I'm not squeaky clean and I made a bunch of horrible mistakes. And he said, well, that actually makes you an expert, right? And that actually makes you an ambassador of the people. And also in a way, you did not mess up your life at 16. You just went on an independent route and you figured it out. Right? And that's what I really love about that type of positive psychology, right? The reverse psychology, in a way to reframe and positively manipulate a person to think differently about who is responsible and what is the framework of what has happened to you, right? How can you look at it? In what kind of context can you look at it? Right? Is it a mistake that you made, or is it a conscious decision that you made to become independent or become whatever, right? Or to learn something. So I always give this to the young kids when I used to work as a counselor. I always told them, if you don't want to listen to your teacher, become independent, right? Make yourself.
It's just the opposite of victim. It's the opposite of the current victim culture. There's
Yes.
the victim culture, there's the high agency culture, and they're opposites
Yes.
of each other. One of them says that I'm suffering and I'm not responsible for it, and therefore I have no power to do anything about it.
Yes.
And then there's the other side says, you're suffering. You're also responsible for fixing it. Good news, you also have some level of power. Part of agency is recognizing you're not omnipotent. You don't have all power, but you have some power to fix your own problems and make your life better incrementally, bit by bit. That is sometimes just explaining that to children, for example.
Mm.
It's pretty scary being tiny, and we're all tiny compared to humanity. We're all tiny compared to the globe. But for a child, it's very small, very difficult being small. At first, you can't even speak. It's very hard for you to communicate. How do you communicate your needs? And you're completely reliant on other people. And if mama doesn't come in the night when you cry, nobody comes. And what do you do? And at a certain point, we have to help the children as their agency develops to recognize that, oh, there's a
Yes.
problem you can solve yourself now. Here's another problem you can solve. The pleasure and joy that children get out of that gradual process of developing their agency is fantastic. And most of the time, when I'm dealing with an adult who's having a difficult time with some aspect of adult life that's complex, there comes a point in it where they just kind of said, well, I'm stuck and I can't do anything. And helping them get past that point where they're stuck and teaching them the strategies and the techniques to get past that, that's really transversal. You teach them that on one area and it can help them for everything. You teach a guy how to approach and talk to women. Very much of that can be used to approach and talk to someone if they want to sell something, or if they want to ask for a raise. How do you ask your boss for a raise? You got to have the courage to go and approach him. And so a lot of these things are very transversal. It's I've noticed that men that I have coach on job related items, so I help them with negotiating with their boss and getting a raise and all of that.
Mhm.
They almost always improve their success with women immediately afterwards.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Absolutely.
Oh, I can go talk to my boss. That wasn't scary. I bet I
Yeah.
can talk to women too.
Yeah. Yeah. And get some small victory, right? In the book, and be able to say, I got some momentum going, right? I did something, it worked out. Now let's see if I can keep the ball rolling. And even if not, right, we know we can always fall back on that one little thing that at least we got one thing right today, right? It makes our whole day, our whole perception so different when we succeed in something. And our brain doesn't know the difference whether we win a marathon or whether we wake up in the morning at the time that we promised ourselves, right? Everything is a victory. Everything is good for us, right? Every boost that we can get is so powerful and gives us so much power. And this is where depressed people always get stuck, right? The people with depression always first question that the psychologist, all these consultations where I had as a counselor had to take these kids and teens to a psychologist, and the first thing they would ask them is tell them, who do you blame for all of this, right? And the actual people with a lot of self-awareness who weren't that deep into depression, who had some self-control, they said, I think I definitely played a big part in this. And the people with depression would start off the list, right? Mom did this and daddy did this and society is that and the president is shit and Donald Trump is this and Putin is warfare and everything is everybody else's fault. And that's why they're stuck in that mentality, because they feel helpless. They feel like nothing that I do matters. Nothing will change anything about my situation. I feel like this is a society issue as well, right? I remember my brother, crazy, crazy son of a bitch, man. Sorry for my French. I got beat up once, and I came home and I told my brother. My brother he was a figure on the streets. He was well respected. He was a Muslim, but he was able to beat somebody up. So people respected him for being a religious tough guy. And he, back in the day, had a lot of connections, knew a lot of people. And I got home thinking that I could get to my brother and tell him, beat this guy up because he beat me up and I want to get revenge, right? And he said, well, you kind of have to figure it out on your own. I cannot be your bodyguard, right? I want you to feel confident walking the streets and not feel that every time I have to run away from this fight and get somebody, I want you to engage, right? And that made a lot of sense. So I went there and I grabbed a rock and I beat him on the back of his head when he wasn't looking. I had to be resourceful because I was not a fighter, right? So I smacked him on his head and broke his skull. That's the only way I could do it. But now looking back at it, I learned take control, be resourceful, work with your strengths. I was a sneaky little bastard. That was my strength. And that's the only way I could fix that situation. And actually did it a couple times where people started to become afraid of me because I was a psychotic kid, right? I went in and out of institutions, a mental health institution. I was pretty mentally unstable. So people slowly started to get afraid of me. Like, this kid is messed up. Don't mess with him. So I actually used that image for my benefit. And now when I tell these things to people, they say, you're insane. First of all, why did you get beat up? You should go to the police and report that kid. Where are the parents in this situation? Why didn't your brother help you? Why did your brother told you to fight back and you beat him with a stone? You should be locked up for. There's so many things morally wrong that people are now judging. But that situation meant so much for me, right? And you won't see a lot of these situations anymore in these modern society with these rules. And we're taking that away from kids, right? We're making them
We're about the
helpless.
last generation that had the opportunity to solve our own problems.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're making kids helpless and powerless, and we're making them dependent on authority that you can't rely on, right? Parents that eventually will grow old and die, teachers who are underpaid and don't give a fuck, politicians that are corrupt. There is nobody that's going to save you. Nobody, right? Ukraine is noticing this now. Europe is not going to help you, bro. You're on your own. Every country, every person in this world, when shit hits the fan, you're going to be on your own. And have you built the resilience? Have you built an army, right, in a way, mentally speaking, to deal with those times where you're going to be on your own, right? Whether it's extreme depression, eating disorder, bipolar, schizophrenia, everybody will get to some mental abyss. And that deep moment when you're in the deepest level of that abyss, usually you're going to be on your own because people don't want to deal with that shit. Right? You might have an extremely loyal wife. She might stick around for a little bit, but if you're not being the man that she needs to be, she's going to bail out on you too.
Well,
And I
even
think
if
that's
she sticks around, she's not going to carry you.
no,
You know, she's going to stick around because maybe you got kids and stuff. She's going to be there, but you got to still carry yourself even when you're broken.
absolutely, yeah. And that's why I think coaching is such a huge, huge important element of our lives now, because there are so many phases before therapy, before medication, before psychiatry, that you can catch these problems before they actually spiral out of control, before that little snowball turns into an avalanche. We can catch them way earlier than we've been doing before. Now looking back at me as a young kid, before I went to therapy, before I went to all these mental health institutions as a young boy, I was already too broken to be fixed. That state I was in was impossible to help me. The only way that was possible for me was for me to do something about it. I didn't create such an extreme high of urgency because my life was so miserable that I can flip a switch and get some momentum going. But no professional was touching me anymore, not with a 10-foot pole. But before that, right, there were so many signs that nobody just picked up on. And now with this generation of coaching and mentorship, I think that that could have saved me at least a decade of my time.
One of the interesting things you did is you solved that problem with that other boy by thinking outside the box. And one of the things I really appreciate about a lot of coaches is they're really good at thinking outside the box. They come up with solutions that therapists are sometimes prohibited from by law from
By law.
implementing. They
Yeah.
try things. I've had a lot of clients come to me and say, I was feeling suicidal. I will not kill myself, but I'm afraid to go to a therapist and talk about this, my past problems that I had that I don't have now, but I want to understand them so that it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
But if I go to a therapist, they're going to take away my guns. They're going to
Yeah.
take away my rights. They're going to
They'll
take
write
away
you up.
something I have. I'm not be able to travel anymore.
Mhm.
Who knows what's going to happen? I can't trust someone that is required by law to report things. So they come to a coach. People talking about very set. I have people come to me because they have off-brand political ideas,
Yes.
and they go to the therapist, and the therapist is the exact opposite of them politically, and she basically says, well, you're just scum because of what you believe, and
Mhm.
that's why you don't feel good. And it's two that both of them are extreme,
Mhm.
and they're just afraid to go to a therapist because of that. And we there's a certain bent towards therapists in general politically, because of the way that the schools are set up. They attract a certain kind of person, and because of the regulations. I have some friends that were therapists, and they left therapy to become coaches
Yep.
because when certain issues, political hot topic issues came up, they wanted to tell the people the truth. If they would have done that, they would have lost their license. So they preempted it and said, fine, I'm walking away from it. I want to be only governed by truth and what's good for my client, and I don't want anyone else messing with this relationship. And this is really one of the important things about coaching, is to understand that, like you said, it's somebody that's on your side when no one else is, and it's somebody that you can actually trust. You can really trust them because
100%.
it's just you and them. There's
Yes.
no third party in that relationship. And this is extremely important for most of my clients. I've had some celebrity clients that didn't want anyone to know that they were getting coaching, but
Mhm.
they were involved in, say, one was involved in a divorce. And in the divorce, you can subpoena financial records and find out she was going to a therapist, and then claim she's crazy. And
She's
oh, she
great.
can't have a kid. Look at this. Look how much she's spending on therapy.
Yeah. 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 That's the way it
No
goes,
problem with
man.
me.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
It's.
this is one of the things about really getting the most out of coaching too, is to go there and understand that you're not going for therapy.
Mm-mm. No.
Okay, so what I like to say to people is, if you busted your leg, okay, and you couldn't walk for a while, and you needed therapy to help you walk again, okay, how long do you stay at the therapy? As soon as you can walk normally, you leave the therapy, right?
You get out of there.
Yeah, but now you want to learn how to run. You want to be a sprinter. You want to be able to run like a kilometer top speed. You want to get in great physical condition, or maybe you want to start doing deadlifts. Where do you go? You don't go to a therapist.
Mhm.
You go to a coach. The coach takes you from, you're not completely broken anymore, but you could be nearly superhuman.
Well,
Most people can achieve levels of physical fitness that, if they haven't worked out, they can't even imagine.
mhm.
If you see a big, strong guy, most of the time people go, well, he's just blessed with a easy to build muscle body. And that's not necessarily true. There's a lot of guys that are pretty ordinary, but they've put the work in and they've gotten incredibly strong, robustly.
Mhm.
Everything you can do with your body, your mind is even more flexible than the body. And by learning how to, you don't become more intelligent, but you train your ability to use the intelligence you have to a high level. And that is, the difference between a trained mind and an untrained mind is the same as the difference between an athlete and an ordinary person.
Absolutely.
Massive.
Yeah.
Whatever, if you're in a business environment, if you're dealing with relationships, whatever it happens to be in life, that advantage you get from having that well-trained mind through coaching, that's going to put you at the top of whatever you're doing.
Huge. Yeah. Huge, huge, huge. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, therapy is interesting, right? I was a counselor initially. I trained as a mentored, followed a lot of trainings and courses, and I saw some value in having an authority position. Especially, it gave me a lot of power to influence institutions around them to move a little bit faster
Mm.
or to be a little bit more flexible or to be a little bit more adjustable to people's needs. And sometimes you kind of have to navigate through these organizations and institutions of the government. So that it did have some benefits, but the main reason why I left it, I think, is similar to what you're saying, is that nobody is willing to accept that therapy and counseling is politics. It is essentially politics. The way you decide to live your life is politics. It's nothing to do with scientific definitions, because there are no scientific definitions to having a quality mental health or physical health. The only definitions we have is that we're all learning and improving as we go, right? They took off the TED Talk from the daughter of Jordan Peterson just because she said, I cured my inflammation disease with a carnivore diet. So who are we to mute that person? Well, probably some nutritionists who have a PhD and who need to cut out that noise because they're trained to do so if it doesn't meet their own personal political requirements. Because in China, facts are different than in Russia, than in Europe, than in America. You guys eat stuff that in Holland you will be put in jail if you put it in the store. Every fact and every science is political, right? There are things that I've tasted actually in America, snacks and potato chips and chocolate that gave me inflammation 2 days straight in my stomach because my European stomach cannot handle the diet that you animals eat, right? So in a way, even that is political. Even how healthy is your food, or what is healthy and what is healthy for your mind, right? All of that is political. So we have to accept that from that coaching or therapist or counseling perspective, we are always politically driven, whether it's conservative, a little bit more on your end. I would also say I definitely lean a little bit more conservative, but I'm also quite liberal when it comes to people's autonomous decision making. I'm fine if you don't want a family, but I also understand people who say family is the foundation of a happy, healthy life. So I think everybody should just find that person that aligns with them and what they deem as success and happiness, right? And not just settle with a therapist who says, I'm going to approach you from a political standpoint and assign, again, science is politics, right? And from that standpoint, we're going to work together and we're going to sort of fix you, right? That's one, totally agree. And the second part of it, I also agree with you, which my wife is doctor in 6 months, right? She's a doctor in training. She's almost done. And even she admits that doctors know way too little about growth in health instead of fixing and sustaining health. They can tell you don't smoke, right? And they can tell you if you smoke, you get cancer. I'll help you with your cancer. But they can't tell you how to actually expand your lung capacity, how to increase your stamina, how to improve your condition. They have no idea, right? They're not being taught that. So when you call a doctor, then that's crazy to me. Every time I tell my wife, I tell her this, like, it's crazy that I cannot call my doctor and tell her, can you give me health advice on how I become more healthier? You're not sick. What the fuck are you doing? Hang up the phone. But I want to be more healthy, so I don't come to you, right? I have no idea. Just whatever. Eat this.
They call it
whatever.
health care, but it should be called not get sick care.
Not get sick care. Yeah.
That is, they just don't want you sick, but
Yes.
healthy. They want you somewhere in the middle.
Yes, exactly. That's the most optimal client, right? For us as well as coaching in a way, we don't want all super healthy people and super mentally healthy people. We want somewhere in the middle. We don't want them sick, but so from a business perspective, it makes a lot of sense. But as a government who is supposed to take care of you, and you being in service to the government and directly in service to the people as well, I think it's tricky. The first step, I believe, again, is to accept and admit that you are politically driven, that you cannot say with an honest and pure conscience that you are doing everything in benefit of the patient. You're not, right? A doctor, even though they take the Hippocrates oath, you are not. You're working for multiple shareholders, right? This is not ancient Greece, 3000 BC, where Hippocrates was helping people in the trenches and fixing people and, teaching young doctor students how to help people. This is a world where you have so many shareholders, right? You have the pharmacy, the big pharma, you have hospitals, you have health scientists and the sponsors of that science that's being done and the sponsors of the research that is being done, right? You have politics.
And then you have to worry about getting canceled by people who just disagree with some idea that you have.
Yes.
You know, one of my doctors, he's an aging expert. Now I'm only 43, but I go to him for hormone treatments because he's an expert at hormones and mostly using that for anti-aging. And the Wikipedia article about him makes him sound like he's, you know, Dr. Kevorkian or something. He's absolutely, I don't believe anything he says. It's absolutely terrible. You're all going to die if you go to him. He's incredibly well respected amongst his patients. He's very effective. He's wonderful to deal with. He's the best doctor that I've ever dealt with as a doctor where I go actually to see him. You know, I know lots of doctors who I get along with, but
yeah,
he's a fantastic doctor. I have another friend who is a client actually, who is a doctor, and he has come up with some fantastic things that he's almost hesitant to share because he knows that the moment he shares it quietly amongst the network, because he knows if it gets out too big, they're going to try to shut him down.
Yep.
And yet it's really helping people with their health. You know, some of the things that he suggested, I've applied to my own health, and it's improved my health as well. And for me, it's very easy to measure because I lift weights and I track what I do. And if all of a sudden, 1 week to the other, I'm 20% stronger, that's huge because I've been training for a long time. I'm near the edge of my genetic potential without using like special substances. I'm near the edge of my genetic potential. And if all of a sudden, small changes improve it a lot, that's a great indicator. But if he was to say what he said on TV, they'd take his license away.
Yeah, of course. Immediately. Yeah. That's why so many people are working privately now or starting their own small LLC or, you know, their own small practice, because you cannot do these things. You cannot help people in a way that you want to help people, right? I've visited a non-medical specialist because they're called an osteopath, where they work on your joints, your muscles, and that kind of stuff. They're not. Many countries don't accredit them with being a real medical licensed specialist, but he doesn't want to be a real medical licensed specialist. He wants to be an osteopath, which means fixing people's joints and back and muscles and bone problems. And he's doing that for AC Milan, the football club in Milan, in Italy. It's the biggest football club in Italy. And he is being hired by these top tier clubs, but nobody's saying that they're hiring them. And he's not allowed to have testimonials on his site. People are saying that don't talk about that because it's kind of dodgy. It's a gray area, and all the doctor community will jump on us and say, "Why don't you have a real medical license specialist? You know, this snake's oil salesman." But it works, right? And that's the thing that I think is so important. The culture of that company, of that football club, obviously believes in holistic ways of dealing with. Instead of cutting them open or medicating them, they believe in massages or exercises or physical work, and that's what he does, mostly physical therapy. So who are we to say that that doesn't work or that does work? And I think those people that are politically driven also, they take a lot of innovation away out of society, where, you know, a lot of people like yourself, like myself, who say, you know what, I don't want to deal with that shit. I'll just go and do it on my own. And now you have the most talented actual therapists and counselors in the coaching field because they're just sick and tired of it. And every time I put a job position on LinkedIn, I get 40, 50 applications for the coaching position that I have open from people who say, I used to work in therapy for 25 years. I'm a psychologist. I'm a neuroscientist. I'm a this and that. All of them medically licensed professionals saying, I don't care about the money. I just want to work and help people again. I'm tired of going through 5 hoops to help somebody. I just want to help people again. And that's what I always wanted to do. And I hope to do that again. And if that's in this coaching environment, then whatever. I don't care anymore. I'm just sick and tired of it. And I think we're chasing a lot of great people out of that field because I think still there is a lot of benefit where the medical world touches the coaching world, right? And unites in therapy and psychiatry, because some people are absolutely sick bastards and they need medication and you need to lock them up, right? Temporarily, they need a reset button in their life because they're insane. And I watch a lot of those sociopath documentaries on Netflix. I love watching them because I recognize a lot of myself in them, actually, of how I was younger. And I actually never spoke about this, but I had a ton of sociopath tendencies. I was extremely manipulative. I never would show my true intention. I was always planning and scheming. I used to abuse animals. I abused the bunny when I was younger. But thank God I was smart enough, and I was catched early by some very highly aware, intelligent counselors and coaches who saw that in me and who recognized the danger that was developing and gave me some right mentoring and counseling and made me feel safe enough to tell them I actually feel like a complete failure, and I feel horrible, and I don't know what to do. I have no direction. And that relief of releasing that to somebody was just that changed my life. But what if I have told this to a therapist? Then they would have locked me up, which they tried to do many times. I ran away from a mental health institution where they tried to lock me up for 3 months, and I ran away, and they didn't catch me again. So that was the first reward I got for opening up, for being
Yep.
honest as a 16-year-old. Like, hey, you, listen, I have suicidal thoughts. I have voices in my head telling me to do horrible things. I abuse my bunny. I'm a horrible human being. I'm very manipulative. I have narcissistic tendencies. I read everything on Google, and I just recognize anything. Charles Manson, all of them. I recognize their childhood with mine. So what do? Like, lock them up. That's the first thing. It's like, I mean, I could see benefit in that, and I could maybe even consider it. But is that the first thing you're gonna tell me? Like, there's no like we're not gonna have any connection or trust or bonding between us or any rapport. It's just you're a sick bastard. Lock him up, and
Let's
that's
see.
why.
This
Yeah.
guy's been brutalized and manipulated his whole life.
Hmm.
He just came to us for help. What should we do? Well, let's brutalize him and manipulate him and see if that helps. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Absolutely. That's what
one
happens.
of the, if you are going to put someone on like a 3-day hold, or you wouldn't put them on a 3-month hold right off the bat. Should put them on a short hold. You normally try to get them to buy into it. Like
Yeah. I
they
agree.
should agree to it, not through manipulation, but through convincing them this is what's best for them.
Hmm.
But I tweeted this today. People are lazy, very, very lazy.
They are.
And the easy solution is just lock them up. It's the easy solution. We'll
Yeah.
deal with that tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
this is one of the things about coaching is it gets you to stop taking the easy solutions to your problems and
Mm.
gets you to face the harder realities, which make your life easier overall. And one example of that is someone was mentioning about psychedelics. And I said, it is possible that some people get enlightenment through psychedelics. But I said, it's not that hard to get enlightenment without it. But it is a little harder than the psychedelics, and people are real lazy, so they'd rather pop a pill.
Yep. They do, man. They do. They take some weird stuff. They licking toads and frogs and eating mushrooms and eating all kinds of shit. It's
Just because
really
they don't
just
want to
an easy
actually
way out.
talk about what's inside them.
Yes. Yes. And they know what's inside them. They know what's going to come out once they lick a frog. We all know what's going to come out, right? I know it's going to come out that the fact that I haven't, been in communication with my mother for the last 10 years of my life because she's a deranged bipolar psychopath. I know I'm going to have some sort of revelation about my brother and sister that we haven't been in touch for years because every time we get together, we fight and argue and cannot resolve our issues. I know it's going to come out that my dad is an alcoholic and they never had a real connection, but I try to visit him sometimes. I know all of these things, and I worked very, very hard and very deeply on them already, even though it hurts. And I think that's really what pulled me out of that sort of sociopath avalanche that I was spiraling into at a young age, and snapped out of it, thankfully, because of great coaching and a lot of self-improvement. But that's where eventually everybody has to decide for themselves, like, am I going to now do some real rigorous self-investing, or am I just going to keep on this path and maybe try some psychedelics or maybe read a book or do something simple and try to get some breakthroughs left and right? Or am I going to say, you know what, let me put some money in this and time in this and effort in this and see where it goes, right? We spend money on TV, on our car, on all silly vacations, on OnlyFans or whatever guy's spending money on, and we're not spending money on our mental health. That's just ridiculous to me, actually. And I also believe that working with these gifted kids in a previous job that I had in a school for gifted dropouts, that's where I saw these kids like myself, these young protege sociopaths, right? How many people have we lost in the system because of that, right? How many Elon Musks, how many Jeff Bezos, how many Mark Zuckerbergs, how many incredible minds, leaders, world changers have we lost just because of that stupid, lazy behavior of the people around them, seeing these things but not doing anything with it? It
These
really,
really high potential young people, that high potential, if you're very much average and normal, and you're probably going to fall in with all the rest of the average and normal people, and you'll go into the trenches like everybody else and do whatever you end up assigned to do.
mm,
But for those high potential people, they either go to the top or the bottom. They
yes,
either go all the way to the light side and become fantastic aids to humanity, or all the way to the dark side and become dangerous. And the difference depends a lot on who they end up coming around, because I don't
yes,
think most of them want to end up on the dark side. For a lot of people, I grew up ministering to street people, and most of them didn't want to get where they were, but
mm.
they at this point in life believed that it was impossible to leave.
Too deep, too
Yeah, they were
deep.
so deep in that they had no, the prostitute, for example, she's so deep in, she's like, how can I ever have a normal life now?
Yes.
A drug addict, how can I'm 30, I've never had a job. How do I get off drugs and go get a job? Like, who's good? Oh, let's see your resume here. Oh, you haven't had a job in your entire, you dropped out of school at 15 and you've been high for 15 years. How are you going to get a job? How are you going to do this? Now, it is possible, and people are much more forgiving than people in that situation recognize. And there are ways around having these kinds of gaps. But even when it comes to, I have a lot of times where I talk to men, they're like, for the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, I've not been leading my wife well. I've not been treating her the way, I've not been connecting with her emotionally. I've been spanking my kids and manipulating them, and I haven't been, dealing with them with persuasion and love properly. But at this point, it's too late to admit I made a mistake and get help. Well, how am I going to fix things now? I've had people say, "Oh, my kids moved away from home. How am I going to fix that relationship?" Well, you're not going to fix it by doing nothing. That just doubles down on it. It is amazing how forgiving people are of people who actually put effort, real effort, and change themselves and work to undo what they've done. And your situation with your parents, mine is a lot similar in some ways, without the alcoholism, but otherwise very similar in other ways. But if our parents actually changed and came back and came around and were really made that effort, they won't. But if it happened, probably there'd be forgiveness. Most people
In a heartbeat. In a heartbeat.
Most people would forgive the absolute worst behavior if people did the work. The problem is people who are that bad generally won't do the work.
No, they won't. But I forgave my dad in a heartbeat. Didn't even took me a second. He told me I'm so sorry for all the horrible things that I've done over my whole life. I feel like a failure as a dad. I'm like, that is okay. We done. New chapter. And then a heartbeat, right? Because I'm a rational guy. I'm a reasonable guy, right? I'm not no bad guy. Most people are not bad people. They're okay. You hurt them a lot, and it definitely will have ripple consequences, and it will have consequences on the behavior of them towards you. It will have consequences on the relationship, the quality of the relationship with your grandchildren. We cannot erase all those consequences, but we can be cool. And we can have a good understanding, definitely, for sure. I think that's one thing that I, as a young kid, when I was developing these tendencies, was most afraid of, that I was never going to be fully forgiven or accepted for the things that I did. And I think that was, for me, the foundation. When I did a lot of therapy and a lot of coaching, a lot of self-work, the foundation for me of all the behavior that I showed, the manipulation, the lying about every little single detail of my life, the fabricating storylines of my life that were not even true, the animal abuse everything that I had at a young age was just the fear of showing who I truly am, because I was afraid that people was going to see the real piece of shit that I was. And I was always this belief of a piece of shit can never be redeemed. There's nothing that they can do to actually be seen as a good person. So even down to the macro of animal abuse is, for me at least, and for a lot of sociopaths I've read into research as well, is You beat up an animal just because you're afraid it might reject you in a way. And you're afraid that you're not capable of getting them to love you or taking care of them. So you just want to hurt it. You want to destroy it because you don't know how to process those feelings of intimacy and love. You just want to kill it and get rid of it and hurt it as much as you can, because that's how you, in a way, deal with your own problems and deal with yourself. You want to hurt it and destroy it as much as you can. You don't want it to exist because it makes you uncomfortable about yourself. That internalized feeling of love, of intimacy, of closeness. It's like, get it away from me. Just fucking kill it. That's actually that's this poor little beautiful bunny that I had, man. I beat him up with a stick so much. Horrible. But now I understand where that came from, right? As a young, troubled boy, I didn't have a lot of choice in my behavior back then, but definitely do now. And I have to say, some benefits there I'm noticing, to be able to be extremely stoic and to be extremely free of emotions and rational. I think that comes from, in a way, being a sociopath as well, where you see in high level CEOs and super successful people, most of them have sociopath tendencies. They're not sociopaths. People say, they are social. No, they are not sociopaths. A sociopath cannot function as a high level CEO, right? They cannot. Right? These people are capable of doing horrible things. If you would exercise one of those horrible acts in a corporate environment, you would go to jail or you get shot, whatever. These have sociopath tendencies, yes, like narcissists, but they're definitely not full-blown sociopaths, right? A sociopath could be, for example, Putin, right? That's a sociopath because he's definitely based his work and his decisions on a why not mentality, right? Not a why should I do that? No, it's like, why not? I do it because I'm Putin. And that's definitely more of a sociopath. But the guys like Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, much more calculated. So these guys.
Well, that ability to be sensitive to notice the emotions of others, but not
Yes.
absorb them yourself,
Yes.
is essential to helping other people. If someone cries on your shoulder and you cry back all the time, sometimes it's hard to get clients with really emotional sessions. It's sometimes hard not to reflect some of that. The problem is that's exactly what you're doing. You're reflecting it. What happens when you get two mirrors together? It's an infinite reflection. You get an infinite whatever that emotion is. Yes. And that can be great when the emotion is positive. But if you do that with negative emotions, people are coming to you for strength. They're not coming to you so that you can pour back your sadness on them.
There you go.
And so that ability to notice other person's emotions and not reflect them and not pour them back on the other person, amplify them and pour them back, it's essential to finding a good coach that can do that. And I think watching some videos of the coach, and I've never seen anyone doing coaching that doesn't have some videos up of them. Gives you an idea of what kind of person they are. And almost everyone that's become my client sees some videos of me before they become a client, because it gives them an opportunity to judge your character.
Absolutely. There it is. Yeah. Coaching for sure. Counseling, therapy, all of those fields. You got to shake it off, go home and start your day and continue your day with your family. And new day, you start with a fully clean slate, rational, and not letting any emotions bleed through in your personal life or in your perception of that person, because they might have just had a bad day. And now you're judging the 10 other sessions based on that 1 or 2 bad weeks that they had, right? So that's also unfair to the client. They're allowed
some people have to vent. They have to vent out negative emotions.
Yes.
And, a lot of what we do is what a father would do with their children. A very well-trained father would do.
Absolutely.
There are times when my son comes to me and, he's got a bunch of negative pent-up emotions, and he'll say he hates me and out of the conversation and I'm ruining his life. And then he'll think about it for a few seconds and he'll be like, okay, I'm sorry. That was carried away. That's not true. Actually, I know you love me. And he says, I don't know why I said that. And I said, it's okay. You had some emotions you needed to vent out. You're 8 years old.
That's
you're
fine.
not a man. If you're a man and you're doing this and it's, that's a little different, but you're a child. And even a man doing that, like, part of the reason you have a coach is because it's someone safe to vent with.
Yes.
And there's a lot of times my clients will get into an emotional tirade And at the end, they'll come on their own because I'm there. I don't say anything. They'll talk for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but they'll come all the way back around.
Full circle.
Realizing, no, that was wrong.
Yes.
No, I think I'm going to correct my own behavior. And they're not really angry at me. They're just angry at life, angry at some situation. And they'll come all the way back around. Now, what happens is, let's say it's a husband and he's having something his wife is doing is frustrating him. He's usually has an expectation of her that is not being met. Sometimes it's realistic. Sometimes it's not a realistic expectation. It's not being met. He's frustrated. He's very frustrated. He comes to me and he pours out all this frustration. If he did that to his wife, all it'd do is cause a fight and deepen the rift between the two of them.
Yep.
Now, he can't go and talk to his friends about that. Very often, my clients are men who are in some leadership position in their community, and they can't go and talk to their friends about problems because they're the one that people talk to about their problems.
Yes.
And they need someone that's separate from them, that's a third party. So I provide that third party, person to talk to, person to vent to. And I've had some sessions where I hardly say anything. How do you feel about that? Why do you think that happened?
Yep.
I'll ask a couple of dozen Socratic questions, and the person will solve their own problem. Most people are actually capable of solving their own problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes they lack the tactics. Yeah, sometimes they lack the tactics. They don't have a technique for dealing with it. But a lot of times they lack the confidence to talk it through.
Yes.
And having another person there, as they're talking through, if they get really off track, I'll go, okay, I think you're getting off track. This is not productive. Let's get on to something more productive, and I'll show you how to do that.
Yeah.
And that's really powerful. I had a client come to me and say, look, since I started coaching a few weeks ago, this has happened and this and this and that. And they're naming all these great things, and it's all stuff we talked about. It's all stuff we worked on. They're like, I know talking to you helped, but I'm not sure what you actually did. Perfect. That's exactly what it should feel like. It should feel like it all came from you.
Yep. You did it.
You want a coach that makes it. You don't want to feel like it's guru and follower. It's not guru and follower. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm showing you options for solving your problem and helping you to pick one. It doesn't even have to be the best one. A lot of people get so wrapped up in picking the best solution that they don't pick any solution because they're so busy analyzing which one is the best. Yes. Will this work? Great. Try it. Go run with it for a while.
Give it a shot. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, give it a shot. And you're going to learn so much more by acting. One of the things about therapy is there's a lot of review of the past, and this is changing, but a lot less prescription for action in the future. Whereas coaching is very little review of the past and focused on what is your prescription for action in the near future.
Yes, the horizon.
Yeah. How are we going to change behavior? And my preference for behavioral change is through action, physical action, things we say. Speaking is physical action. Things we say to other people, how we stand, how we talk. If you have low self-confidence, simply standing up straighter. Be aware of your posture for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Notice how your confidence improves. How is that psychological? It's physiological, but the physiological and the psychological are deeply connected. This is all one thing. This is not a brain floating in a jar with a body that's separate. And I really like that focus of coaching. I think it comes back to, coaching started off with, for a lot of people, as physical coaching. Like if you say coach, some people say, oh, what sport? They think you're a sport coach. And a lot of sport coaches are they really understand human psychology well.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
An athlete's not just a machine. It's not an animal that you get out there and, run him in a field. He's a human being. He's got fears. He's got, he's worried about getting crushed if it's a football player. He's worried about getting crushed. He's worried about injuries. He's worried about his ability to perform, all of the things that can get in the way of his physical performance. And I think that that transitioned very well over to people who coach without it being a sport related type of coaching. And I think that is a foundation of why coaching is so much different, because it's so focused on action.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's great that you mentioned sports coaching because I get a ton of motivation out of athletes, coaches, right? Whatever athlete coach you are, football, tennis, soccer, doesn't really matter. I can get so inspired from almost every single sports coach because, in my opinion, they're the first real mindset coaches, right? And we
Mm.
know we have a couple of these gurus, like whatever, Thomas Leonard and Tony Robbins. They were early in this game, and I definitely accredit them to blowing up this industry in a way that now there's money in it. Right before that, there was no money in coaching, but the sports coaches were actual fathers, actual mentors, big brothers, and they were helping people to reach ungodly levels of performance consistently because that's what was needed to reach this team goal that we have. And that's in many ways what we're still doing now, right? As coaches, we're doing a lot of it, but we're doing sports coaching, right? We're teaching people that we have two different realms of performance. We have the individual and we have the team. And your team can be a company, your team can be a family, your team can be your friends, right? Those are the overarching goals of becoming of value to your community, for example. Then we have the individual goals. What do you need to do within your role in that team to achieve not only team victory, but personal victory, right? Because we have selfish motivators as well. And that's a coach's job at the end of the day, right? To put the pieces in the puzzle and to help them realize what are your personal goals and what are your, in many cases, professional goals, right? I think that's so amazing, and how coaches do that is very varied actually. With a lot of these, I follow a lot of soccer coaches. Some of them are provocative coach. They like to challenge and probe, and they use humor and they use challenging the person and bullying a little bit. Some of them are really reflective and more mindful and more friendly, and they're like a father in a way, or a friend, or like a wise old wizard in a way. They just come by and drop some wisdom and go on with their day. And some of them are managers and they don't even get involved on a personal level. They just step back and let them build relationship amongst each other. So many of these methods that have been developed actually out of necessity, out of urgency, not really out of these people are now being offered fixed programs. They just developed out of we have a team and we need to win. And how do we do that?
Well, it's
Well,
a great laboratory because there's instant feedback. You
yes,
see instant performance. Okay, not only do you win more games, we're getting closer to winning on the ones we lose. Oh, you're
yes,
you're kicking farther, you're kicking more consistently, you're shooting more consistently, whatever it happens to be, because everything is so tracked intensely in pro sports.
yes.
That's something that I do with my clients too, is we track things. What is it that you're trying to improve? How would you measure that? I want
There
to
you
I want to
go.
have a more intimate relationship with my wife. What do you mean by that? Be more specific. Do you
Yes.
mean you want to connect with her emotionally better?
Yeah. More
Okay, how
sex,
many?
more talking,
Or
more
do you mean
dating.
sex? If you mean sex, just say sex. It's an okay. We're adults. You can say that word.
There you
You
go.
know. And what do you mean? Do you want more sex or do you want better quality sex or both?
Hmm.
And so you be real specific. And then the men are tracking specifically. And let's say sometimes it is I want more emotional connection with my wife. How would you track that? How often do you have deep emotional conversations with your spouse? Some
Hmm.
people don't do it ever. They just don't have them. Period. It's like a roommate that they have sex with occasionally and raise children with. You know?
It's actually remarkable, right? How many people are not actually tracking what they do in life or what the results are they want from life, and at the same time complaining that it's not enough. But you're not tracking your finances, but you're complaining you don't have enough money. I'll bet you all of these, and this is so I get so upset about it. Some Americans, you Americans, let me tell you something, right? As an Iranian, I can do that because we're arch nemesis, right? So you Americans complain so much about poverty and working 4 or 5 jobs at the same time. All of these people complaining about Amazon not paying enough, and McDonald's and Joe Biden and corruption. But if you cannot make it in America, you will die in 80% of other countries. Like, if you cannot make it in one of the best first world countries to live in by far, come on, man.
Well,
So
you got these families. You got two guys. One makes 60, the other makes 60. One has a wife and 6 kids. The other is by himself, living in an apartment with roommates and can barely make ends meet.
and he's broke. Yeah,
And he's
that's
broke all the time,
ridiculous. And
making the same amount of money, living in this, roughly the
yes,
same state. You
yeah,
know,
and I
and there's
promise you,
there's
people.
choices. There's those
Yes,
choices you make with what you do.
yes,
That's massive. I mean, just aside from the fact that the guy who doesn't have a wife and kids could probably go and get a second job.
yes.
Right. Can't do that when you got a wife and kids, but
No,
you know,
no. I mean, there you go.
that's young man. That's young single man stuff.
And I bet you all of my money that I have, that every person that is in poverty or not doing well financially has never in their life tracked their finances, made
Yeah.
accounts, made books about what the hell am I spending my money on? Even if it's $200 a week, what is it going to? How am I spending it? And am I using it optimally? Right. And at the same time, I see these shows about poverty and people poor and not having enough money, and they're buying garbage, expensive garbage, mind you, right? And feeding themselves, making them sick, racking up medical bills, getting more sick, paying money to medical bills, and eating garbage, and this cycle endlessly. And I think in that space right there, that's a coach, man. And I think that's Holland. It's incredible because Holland has very, very highly developed social systems, and they are one of the most social countries in the world, where every city you will have access, no matter how small the city is, you will have access to a counselor slash coach, whether it's financial, whether it's for addictions, whether it's for social welfare, whether it's for your well-being. So you can have access to these people and just sit there and tell them, listen, I make $200 a month. How the hell do I manage? That's what I did when I was 19, 20. I was 25,000 in debt because of just stupid mistakes I made. And then I went to a finance coach and told him, how do I do this? And they say, listen, you have $900 a month, euros. It's not a lot of money, but we can make it work. Just do this. And in like 7 years, you'll be out of debt. I mean, that's better than nothing. Took me
Right.
7 years, like 8 years,
in
actually.
90 days. Something
Yeah.
you did a great post the other week about, or I think it was this week, and you mentioned that there's, you have people that they're trying something, they're being pretty consistent for 30 days or 60 days or whatever you said, and then they come back and they go, how come all my problems haven't been solved yet?
Yep.
And I have sometimes I've had men say, yeah, I've been doing what you said, things are a little better, but everything in my marriage isn't perfect yet. You were 15 years a lazy husband.
Absolutely.
Your wife doesn't believe it yet because you're like 15 days are doing the right thing. That doesn't compensate for 15 lazy years. Exactly.
Yeah,
your kids aren't going to trust you right at first. If you've been a neglectful parent and suddenly you become a caring and concerned parent, your kids aren't going to believe it's real.
No way.
Because it's so scary for them that, oh, maybe this is real. And then if I accept it and it goes away, I'm going to feel terrible. Better I just keep my mental vision of my dad as an incompetent because it's safer. You take some consistency. You have to hold with it. And I've seen that with families that, one of the things I help families do is go from chaos to order. Put order in the family. And this isn't like being some sort of dictator to your wife and kids. This is more along the lines of providing them some predictability and some ability to know what's going to happen in life. What's life going to be like? Where are we going? Yep. And for children, this is extremely important. My kids are like, I want to eat at the same time every day. Why? Because that's when I get hungry.
Yep. Makes sense.
I want to, is it? You got to tell me, my son says, you got to tell me when I'm being weird. Because I don't know. And I don't want to be weird and not have any friends. So, well, there are some weird you can be and it's okay. And then other weird is really going to annoy people. So I'll tell you when you've crossed the line and let you know. Kids, they want to have structure. I actually think most women want to have structure too. Creating structure in a family environment can be a difficult thing. It can be stressful. And I've had a lot of women say to me, I wish my husband would create this structure, and they'll describe what they want and go have that conversation with them. No, I haven't asked him for it. Go ask him for it. Ask for what you need. And the men that do that, though, if you've had chaos in the family, and suddenly you present a plan for order.
Mm.
Okay, we're going to get our finances tracked. We're going to start working together to clean up the place. We're going to do whatever it happens to be. We're going to have some consistent meal times. It could be anything, bedtimes. At first, everyone's going to test it because whether order or not sticks or not depends on you and your willingness to stick with it. And they're not testing your plan, they're testing you. Because and you only get tested when you've shown a prolonged period of not being reliable.
Yep. Sample size, man. You need a good big sample size to prove that you are the person that you're saying you are.
Exactly. When I'm with my son and I say for him to do something, hey, Levi, come here. I ask him once and he comes over. My wife, she calls him 10 times. And she's like, why does he come the first time you call him? I said, because if he doesn't come, I get out of the chair and go to him. And then I lead him over here. And then we have the conversation. And he knows that I'm serious about it. He knows that it takes you 10 times calling him. And that sometimes he'll still give up. So he's not going to go over there. He's not going to take it seriously. And so now she's figured this out. She's fixing that behavior. But I had to let it go for a while. This is one of the things. There are a lot of advanced fathering and husbanding techniques that there is no book about it.
Mm-mm.
You only learn this from your dad, your grandpa, your uncle, or a coach. It's the only place you get
and the feedback of your family, right?
Yeah, and the feedback of your family. Well, and some of these will work on some families and not on others.
Yes.
I find that what works well on mine is to let them do it wrong a few times, to go along and go, hey, let's see if we can make this better. And get their buy-in on it. My wife's very agreeable to me, but she's in general a disagreeable person. I'm disagreeable. My son is super disagreeable. All three of my children, their report from school said they don't like to follow instructions.
Sounds about right.
What to do. And my wife went to the school and said to them, well, when she dropped them off after we read this, she says, yeah, that's who they are. That's their personality. They don't work by being told what to do. They work by, we get them on board our plan.
Yes.
A little more upfront work. It's a lot less. My son now, he does 50 push-ups, 50 kettlebell swings, and overhead presses, 15 on each side. And he's getting really fit. He's 8 years old. He's solid as a lump. If he runs into you, feels like he got hit with a hammer.
Yeah.
And if I told him, if I said, you have to do it, he would not do it. I guarantee you.
No.
He wouldn't do it even if he wanted to do it. But I explained to him the advantages and the benefits. And now all I have to do is go, you should do your exercises. Oh yeah, thanks for reminding me, Dad. He'll do them. Still needs a little trigger to remember it. But he's on board with it. Same with cleaning up.
Because it's his exercise, right?
Yeah. If I say clean up the room, exactly, it's his. He takes ownership of it. If I say clean up the room, no, Dad, I don't want. I got other things I got to do. I'm tired. I need to eat, whatever. And I'll say, hey, Levi, could you help me clean up the room, or could you clean up this room? Because I'm going to have clients later, and it's easier for me to work when there's not your toys around. Oh yeah, sure, Dad. I'll get right on that, and he'll start doing it. It's a matter of, these are, I talk to so many parents that say, but if I don't hit my kids and manipulate them, how do I get them to behave? Or how do I get them to do what I want them to do? Well, you don't. You get them to want to do what needs to be done.
Yes. And want to do what they want to do, right? And make sure that their motivation is aligned with you, right? Yeah.
And aligning that motivation and recognizing that your children's motivations won't always be 100% aligned with you. I've had a number of parents. How do I get I want my kid, my kid's in like this extracurricular activity and they're not doing well. And they don't like it. And it's a fight to take them. Like, okay, so stop taking them.
There you go.
But they need to learn to play an instrument. Why? What's going to happen if they don't learn to play that instrument? Well, I want them. I want. So it comes down to the parent. I want.
That's what it always comes down to.
I said, that's great. And if they agree with what you want, fine. But if they don't, why are you making them do this? You're expending your love capital that you have on that kid. You have a certain amount of relationship capital with people.
Yep.
If I said to you, hey coach, I really need to do an interview with you immediately, really quick, last minute. I have enough relationship capital. You probably, if you had time, go and do it. But if I showed up at your house and said, I'm homeless, I'm going to stay here for 3 months. Oh, we don't have that kind of relationship. We don't have that. I don't have that capital with you. But I have friends that I could do that. I could say to them, something happened and I got to stay with you till I get on my feet.
Yes.
And they'd be like, oh yeah, come on in. And it wouldn't be a problem. But on the other hand, that's because, you build that relationship capital, but you also spend it every time you need something from someone.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that you spend that relationship capital, if you're spending it at a faster rate than you're accumulating it, eventually the relationship goes bankrupt.
Absolutely.
And for a marriage, that means divorce. For children, that means that they'll become alienated from you. They may not be able to escape until they're old enough. But there are a lot of people, a lot of boomers are going to end up in the cheapest old age home that their kids can find.
Yeah.
Because boomers were notorious for this. Take everything they could take, give nothing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's, if you've been doing that with your kids, man, you need to contact a coach that specializes in family stuff, and you got to fix that now. Don't wait to fix that, because the hardest thing I think in relationships to fix is dishonesty, and the second hardest is selfishness. And they almost always go along. If someone comes to me and says, look, I want something from you, and they're selfish, but they're completely honest with me. I want something from you. I want to pay as little as I can from it and all that. I'm like, okay, I have a boundary. I'm not going to let you pass the boundary. But hey, you're being honest about it. And if we can work together, we will. But the problem is that selfish people never come to you honestly.
No.
They never come to you and say, I want everything and I'm going to give you nothing.
Yes. I was trying to pull some slick shit.
Yeah. It's usually the opposite. I'm going to take everything. I'm going to give you everything, and I don't want anything in return. Yeah. I'm a good guy. That
was some manipulative shit. Yeah.
I was such a good parent. Meanwhile, every one of your kids disagrees.
Yeah.
I've said so many families. I've had families where I've had 2 or 3 of the kids get on a session with their sibling that was getting adults with their sibling that have been being coached and say, and I'm like, I've heard this story about your family from your brother. Is this true? Yeah, it's all true. It's all true. Is this as bad as he says? Yeah, it's all bad. Okay. Wow, that was hard to believe, but if you all agree, that's the story. If you have 5 kids and all 5 of them tell the same story about the horrors of their childhood, it doesn't matter if it happened or not. You've done something to make them perceive that it was that bad.
You did something there. Yeah, you did something for sure.
And the parents, I've rarely seen a parent go, yeah, I was a terrible parent and I did a really bad job with my kids, and I neglected them and I abused them, and I'm really, I shouldn't have done that. I've really never seen that. There are people, I know lots of people right now that their kids are very young and they're deathly afraid of passing on that same trauma that they received as children. These are my favorite people to work with, because I can help them. I can help them before they've ruined the relationship with their children.
Exactly. And they should be.
I've even helped some people, they have their kids not born yet, but I can tell the way a man treats himself is how he's going to treat his children.
For sure.
Because you're going to see your children as an extension of you. Mm-hmm. I don't really think that that's a problem. Like, it's depersonalizing them. Yeah, but we're kind of an extension of our ancestors, and our children are an extension of us. That doesn't make them less human. That makes them more human. That makes them more important to us. But if you're worried about passing on your trauma from childhood, and if you haven't dealt with it, you are going to pass it on. Yes. Sometimes with interest. I've seen it get worse, and I've seen it get better. And this totally.
That was my main motivation. Main motivation was, I don't want to give this to my kids, because my dad got it from his dad, and his dad got it from his dad. And I don't know how far I can go back in the bloodline, but I feel like I can go far, almost to the Persian Empire 2,000 years ago of trauma, of pain, childhood. And that was really definitely the moment that I decided, I'm going to be the patriarch of this family. The apple's not going to fall far from the tree. I'm going to cut down the tree and plant a new tree. And nobody's ever going to know about any mental health issues or any problem that has ever occurred in this bloodline anymore. Health and healthy, beautiful apples are going to grow from this tree from now on. And I'm going to be the one responsible. And yeah, that's really the main motivator, the main higher value for me to say it ends here. Right? I don't care what happens. World War II, World War III, nukes, I don't care. My kids are going to be happy, positive people. Right? Even though there are also reasons why people become traumatized and, live a life of pain. But no, I'm done. I'm done with that. I'm no longer going to allow that to happen. And yeah, I'm happy you work on that, Noah. I'm so happy. This been an amazing talk, man. I wish I had hours more time today, but this was
Yeah, we'll
awesome.
wrap it up now. And where can people find you if they want to talk to you, if they want to, book coaching from you? Where can they find you?
Appreciate that. Yeah, I always like to be vague and say, well, once you're ready, the coach will find you. But that's not true, obviously. CoachMama.com, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, I'm everywhere. I'm not active on those social media as much as I should be because I hate social media and hate what it does to my mental health. But I try to tweet from time to time. I try to put some stuff out. I try to put some comments on Instagram. So if you want to reach me, my website would be the best. CoachMama.com. Find a program that fits you. Reach out to me. We'll have a chat and we work together. Hey, I mean, if you're looking for some agency, for some good conservative values, you need to check in with my man Noah, man. That's top quality.
You can find me at noahravoy.com, and you can find me on Twitter, Noah Ravoy on Twitter. And if you've been waiting for a sign, a lot of people are like, well, I'll go get coaching when I'm ready. You're ready now, and this is the sign to go get your coaching. There's two coaches talking about how you can get value out of it. The longer you wait, the more expensive and the more time it takes to get your coaching done. The sooner you go, the more effective it is and the more you're going to get out of it.
Yep.
So thank you very much for joining me today. It has been fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing you on my timeline and to chatting with you here and there in person. Thanks.
Definitely. Thank you so much, bro. Talk soon.
Thank you for watching our video, and I hope it inspired you to take action in your life. Please subscribe to our channel and like this video to get more agency building content. The real secret sauce is in our newsletter. Click on the link in the video description below to sign up. I promise I won't flood your inbox, and anything that we do send you will be of high value.